I'm actually often surprised when I talk to scientists and students about sharing their research and data in the work that we do to assess the state of the oceans and plan for development in the oceans. It really strikes me that their desire to make a difference in the lives of the Indian and Atlantic Ocean communities is tangible. And in my own experience, there's 5 key elements that have really helped to connect science and society. Those are the multidisciplinary research programs that recognize multiple forms of knowledge and help to feed these into the knowledge ecosystems that we need to make complex decisions in the ocean. Research that synthesizes this knowledge and then takes it forward into decision-making is really important. And some of the key skills involved in doing that, in my experience, are spatial analysis, economics, and that all-important social science that Muniba was talking to us about. We need new approaches to develop capacity and support knowledge exchange. One of the examples that's really been helpful amongst the deep sea scientists is where international scientists are willing to come and work with us in a developing country under our constraints with our vessel and gear, and so capacitate many scientists in their local context. Partnerships through citizen science and also working with industry, really important in the deep sea where things are so expensive and inaccessible, have really helped not only to build the knowledge base, but also the relations needed to move science into decision-making. And then lastly, work that recognizes and helps us understand the complex human connections with the ocean is critical to societal benefits. And transdisciplinary research can help us in this area. But scientists might need to change before we can transform ocean science. And I'd like to draw some lessons, some early learning from the One Ocean Hub, which is an amazing transdisciplinary project that I have the privilege of being involved in. And this project's got multiple research programs from arts, law, natural science, social science, and brings these together for more inclusive decision-making and participation and ocean governance. The Hub developed a code of practice that really learned from obstacles in getting research to support development. So drawing from those and really identifying and focusing on these barriers and learning from them, we developed this code of practice that calls on us to regularly review the partnership, the fairness and the health of our relationships between disciplines in funding and in research outputs. One of the big values of this work is that it's really responsive and flexible, having clear impact paths, metrics so that we can monitor change and share our learning outcomes. And I think very valuably, especially the work through the arts, the multiple media arts work, I think there's important lessons that we can share about connecting with society. But really importantly, we have learned that the many long established and very deep connections of Atlantic Ocean communities need to be recognized, and that the knowledge and needs of these communities, from small scale fishers to oil and gas executives, need to be included in all types of planning and decision-making. Scientists may need to change their relationships with these communities and with other scientists if we are going to better co-design, co-conduct, publish, and share research for development. The decade of ocean science for sustainable development is going to provide us with many opportunities for a better Atlantic. But I would like to reflect on the relationships that we will need to achieve the science we do for the ocean we want. Relationships that provide for co-design, co-leadership, and for partnerships that are more equitable, not only in terms of discipline and funding, but in terms of inclusivity in our capacity development efforts. It's not just about fair data, but fair research and fair outcomes. This applies equally in coastal platforms, and so for example, the multidisciplinary research partnerships facilitated through the African Coelacanth Ecosystem Program, but also in the deep sea. I'm highlighting these two publications by Kerry Howell and team because they were really inclusive efforts. And I'm aware that even in 2020, there are scientists publishing papers about the waters of developing countries without any collaboration from that country. We need more inclusive and equitable partnerships if we are to yield success at the science policy interface. So finally, a couple of recommendations. We need to listen to deeply understand. So both scientists and funders, if we're going to deeply understand the challenges and needs and the capacity building desires of developing countries, that's going to be important. We need to build trust and the relationships that we need for effective partnerships. We need to be inclusive and fair, and we need to innovate. We need to connect and communicate, sharing our stories, our data, and our experience. And we may need to incentivize and recognize this change. If we are to continue to measure scientists entirely by academic output factors, impact factors, without also accounting for societal impacts and benefits, we may fail to deliver the science we need for the ocean we want. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kerry, for that. And I agree with you. As scientists, we really need to change our approach in how we solve problems and really include the people that we're trying to solve or create these solutions for. And I will now move on very swiftly to Francois Hahani from the Institute. Where he's from is written in a language I do not speak. And Francois is from Europe and will tell us the institute of research that he originates from. Thank you. Over to you, Francois.
Okay, thank you very much, Judith. Thank you for the organizer for the invitation. I will try to upload very quickly my screen. Is that okay with you?
Yes, if we can just put it on presentation mode.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, the topic is strongly linking with a citizen. The topic I will explain. And just because, I mean, it's largely, the work is largely done by the citizen scientists. So it's dealing with monitoring of moral litter. That is part of the moral litter issue. What is important to understand is that without the ocean, and there is simply no life on Earth. And so it means that we have a lot of challenge to before we reach healthy oceans, and because of human footprint, because of climate change, because of lack of knowledge, and also inadequate governance. Of these, of the various topics of importance for healthy oceans, monitor is one of the, I would say, the best perceived topic because it directly reaches the general public. It's a real pervasive pressure. It's everywhere. It's really abundant, and I mean, inputs may still increase for the in the near future. So I think it's really important to deal with that issue in terms of science, environment, society, and policies also, and economy. So we do have actually different global initiatives on moral litter, mainly coordinated by UN agency and related institutions. So we have the UN Ocean Decade, we have the UNEA with mainly directed to organize the governance, maybe a convention coming in the next future. Also a platform to support research, knowledge, and so on. We have IMO that is dealing with the moral litter at sea from shipping sources. Also, we have IOC that is largely involved and is considering to participate global monitoring, important. And also we do have initiatives like G20 or G7. There will be a meeting next week organized by Japan on the monitoring of microplastics at the surface of the ocean. We do have also initiative, a more regional initiative. I would say I would just take the example of the European Commission and the work done by member states and coordinated by European Commission. It's a lot of work for the last decade. Different directives, also a plastic strategy, a lot of decision in terms of reduction, like banning single-use plastics, for instance, improving the recovery of or avoiding, I mean, the loss of fishing gear and so on. So many actions, but monitoring is part of the issue and must be improved. So what is important also to consider is that we have the mission that has been already proposed, that will be agreed in a few weeks, and we'll start normally next year, early next year. So I will not go in detail because there will be some discussion on that probably during the meeting. But what is important is that Maritime is also part of the mission and will be considered for the next 10 years. We do have a lot of actors, large-scale platforms, one global platform, GPML in Nairobi. We have also regional platforms like MSAD in Europe, ICES in Northeast Atlantic, and national platforms like NOAA, for instance, in the US, who is organizing monitoring and so on. But what is important to, realize is that large NGOs are really active in the field, and we do have a lot of examples. And marine litter is typically a topic that will be of interest for the general public, not because it's important from the environment point of view, but also because of the social point of view. It's really involving the citizen, and it's quite important to support all initiative on that, for not only that reason. So we may understand that, all regional sea conventions together may support monitoring of marine litter, harmonizing first, using this common methods approach and so on. But we still have some challenge to face. And here are just some examples of the maps of marine litter on the seafloor, for instance. And bottom right, you have a good example. It's a model from, that has been launched by a European project very recently, Clean Atlantic. And it has been showing that all the waste coming from Europe are traveling to the western parts of the Atlantic Ocean in the Western Caribbean. So we do have links. And when you know, after the example of a tsunami, that 300 species have been traveling from Japan to North America in terms of impact to the biodiversity. There is not so much knowledge on that, but it's quite important in terms of impact, for instance. So we do have to face some challenge before monitoring will be implemented. I will not go in detail, but we have risk assessments, new indicators, topic microplastics, for instance, and we have to automate measurements and so on, cost-effective methods to expand the monitoring. And you see that there is a potential to have something organized and harmonized in order to better understand what will be done. So there is a chance to have a global monitoring of marine litter, actually, with many actors to be involved. And it's important to state that there is a role for the All Atlantic Ocean Research Program. I thank you very much, Julie.
Thank you so much, Francois. I think right there you illustrated to us very clearly what the role of monitoring these oceans has on being able to locate the challenge, being able to locate what the challenge is doing so that we're able to implement and design adequate solutions from a position of knowing, because essentially the forum wants to understand, wants to know so that it can create viable solutions for social impact. Thank you very much, Francois. I would begin there in the discussion. And I want to now move on to Alexander Tura from the Oceanographic Institute of the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. Over to you, Alexander. Thank you.
Hello, all. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm also the chairholder of the UNESCO Chair on Ocean Sustainability, and I will start my brief talk with a painting to emphasize some aspects related to the issue or the theme of the panel today. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. This is a painting by a Brazilian artist named Cândido Portinari. The name of this painting is Guerra e Paz in Portuguese, or War and Peace. This gives us some kind of direction to what we are doing or what we are thinking for the All Atlantic efforts, so that we need to understand the pathway we need to follow from the left, which talks by itself, to the right, which talks by itself. This painting is exhibited in the headquarters of the UN in New York. It has 14 meters high, not tall, it's big, and it represents a very important understanding of what would we expect from these process we are engaging as scientists, as society. So the idea behind this painting is that we are talking about the ocean as a social ecological system. And this is really, really important to be captured because we need to engage clearly and closely society with the ocean. It can be a reality in some countries in the Atlantic, but not in others like Brazil. And then it's important that we use this kind of incentive to think on the oceans to evidence the challenges we have. One of the big challenges is, like Francois mentioned, to keep the ocean healthy, to use it in a sustainable way, but mostly to share its benefits in an equitative way. This is one important point when we discuss how to explore the ocean, the economy, the new economy of the ocean, the innovation that will help us to explore the ocean in different ways. So we need to ask some important questions like, who will benefit from this? And in this way, we need to establish, foster, incentivize a closer relationship between science, between innovation, and society. Society meaning people and decision makers. So this could be a strategic pathway or way to make what we are planning to the oceans, to the Atlantic oceans, more reasonable or more important or more relevant to the society. One possible way to move forward is, complementing what Francois said, is to explore and foster citizen science. But not only the science, the dimension of citizen science, but also the citizen dimension of citizen science. The citizen dimension is underexplored in most initiatives related to citizen science, and there are enormous possibility of using citizen science initiatives to inform citizens, to engage them better into the discussions we are facing, we are promoting. So there are three needs I listed here. One is capacity building in areas like environmental psychology, information technology, and big data that will be important and to foster citizen science approaches. We need to structure arenas where science and society, meaning people or decision makers, will be together thinking on the future of the ocean and the future of humankind. And in the end, we need specific funding like teams, platforms, advertisement to widely share these initiatives to engage people not only living at the coast. As a final message, to be brief, I would say that we need that the All Atlantic initiative should be for all the Josephs and Marias, with all the Josephs and Marias that are in all the countries around the Atlantic Ocean. So hope this message was clear, and hope to be to contribute with the discussion later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alexander, for that very creative and very captivating contribution there. And I think we got you, and we got you well there. It's capacity building, it's putting all of the people that matter, the decision makers and societies, into one room, and it's funding to be able to reach all of these targets. Thank you very much, Alexander, for that contribution. I'm going to move on to Kendra McDonald, who is the CEO of Ocean Supercluster in Canada. Over to you, Kendra.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
I'm not able to turn on my video. Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen. Could you please put it in presentation mode?
I can.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think someone needs to turn me on for me to be able, oh, there we go. Hold on. There we go. You see me too. All right. I guess good morning or good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today and to be part of this discussion. And as I listen, recognizing more and more that while we all have areas of focus within the ocean economy, we are truly one global ocean economy community, and this is a really important conversation. Just yesterday, we heard from the high-level panel for sustainable ocean economy that healthy oceans needs to be at the top of the global policy agenda to be able to accelerate economic recovery. And I'm very excited that Canada is playing a very active role as part of that conversation. The global economy is set to grow to, or projected to grow to $3 trillion by 2030. And as we've already heard several times this morning, the oceans are already under tremendous pressure. The conversation we need to be having is around not ocean growth or ocean health. It's about how we balance both for future prosperity. With every second breath that we take coming from the ocean, Canada's Ocean Supercluster has been very focused on raising the awareness of the importance of our ocean to all Canadians. You may not be very familiar with Canadian geography, but a lot of our population is in the center of the country versus actually on our ocean shorelines. So what is Canada's Ocean Supercluster doing, which is probably a little bit different than some of the other presenters this morning? We are one of 5 innovation superclusters across the country. We were established in 2018, and we're actually looking to grow the Canadian economy. We are industry-led, and so while we have a tremendous research community in Canada, there was a very specific focus in being an industry-led cluster and looking at changing the way ocean business is done. And so what do we really mean by that? One is being able to increase collaboration. So we've heard this a few times. How do we bring different parties to the table to be able to solve complex challenges? And so we take a cross-sectoral approach in our projects and in our cluster. We've got members from bioresources and oil and gas, fisheries, aquaculture, defense, ocean technology. We've got industry, academia, investors, and government, all working together in different ways to develop globally scalable solutions to ocean challenges. We're looking at an ocean economy that is increasingly digital, with many of our projects like Ocean Vision and Ocean Aware, leveraging technology and data collection. We've heard data a couple times already as a key theme, including autonomous vehicles and sensors. We're looking at an ocean economy that is increasingly inclusive, which with projects like the Blue Futures Pathway, which is focused on engaging over 2,500 youth, 18 to 30, in ocean opportunities, as well as our Indigenous Career Pivot Pilot, which is helping Indigenous people already in a career pivot to a career in ocean. And finally, increasingly sustainable, with projects like our Smart Protective Coating Project, which is developing new non-toxic protection for vessels that reduces fuel consumption and GHG emissions. Canada has the longest coastline in the world. Much of that is in the Arctic. We have 3 oceans that provide some of the harshest marine environments. Our oceans are also rich in resources with incredible untapped potential. And we know, and we've heard, that by achieving ocean health, we actually also increase ocean productivity. I realize I'm talking about my slides, so I'll skip to the next one there. In terms of the supercluster, so we have just about 350 members. We have 42 projects, and we've approved approximately $200 million in project value over the last couple of years. Actually, 36 of those 42 projects have been approved in the last 6 months. We really looked at what we could do to work with companies that have been significantly challenged with the impacts of the pandemic, but we are also witnessing their resiliency, and we truly believe that some of the biggest opportunities for economic recovery and long-term growth exist in our ocean economy. We've touched on data a couple of times already, but I think it's incredibly important and a key role that All Atlantic Forum can play. Several of our projects are focused on collecting and sharing data. And I think that that's important not only for Canada, but for the world as we try to make better decisions. We are working with the Canadian Integrated Ocean Observation System to raise awareness on the importance of data, to connect Western knowledge to Indigenous knowledge, to connect better data, to collect better data on our ocean workforce, to be able to develop better solutions to increase inclusivity, and also to be able to help Canadians better understand the opportunity in ocean. I'm incredibly proud to share what we have been doing in Canada to grow our ocean economy in a sustainable way. In January, I was a facilitator at the UN Decade of Ocean North Atlantic Workshop with Martin Visbeck. And we were talking about data. And we brought a very different perspective to the conversation, which reinforced for me the importance of conversations like this, global conversations with all parties at the table, including industry and academia and government, having one conversation as we look at addressing these incredible ocean challenges and taking advantage of the opportunities and creating the equity that we've been talking about. So I'm excited to be here and to hear from my fellow panelists. As Renoki Satoro says on the power of collaboration, individually we are a drop, but together we are an ocean. And that's the power of conversations like this today. And I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kendra, for that contribution and for this clearly incredible work and the incredible results that you guys have been able to achieve out there in Canada. And I think the highlights for me, which I thought were really interesting, is the inclusion of industry as a partner, but also the deliberate action to upskill young people into ocean careers, but also to pivot people who are in a different career and try to convince them to pivot into the ocean related careers. Very interesting for me, those realizations from your contribution. Thank you so much, Kendra. I'm going to move right along to Monica Grosso, who is the Chief Economist, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the United States of America. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Today in my presentation, I'm gonna give you an overview of our efforts to measure the ocean economy. We talk about growth in the economy. We have a lot of data flowing out there, but it's really, really hard to really understand and measure the ocean economy. So NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration in the US, along with our statistical office, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, it's the office that produces the national GDP, the gross domestic product. We decide to join forces and try to measure the impact of ocean activities to the US economy. And this effort, it took us around 3 years to get to the stage that we are right now. And a lot of the information that we have is based on years, decades of research, and also consulting with experts from academia, industry, and any other governments as well. We also collaborate with other countries. There are many other countries working on measuring the ocean economy. Like, for example, Portugal, I think Canada is also working on measures for the ocean economy. And maybe if you can change to the next slide, please. So why is it important for us to develop this project and measure the ocean economy? First of all, it's key for us to be able to understand what actually the ocean economy includes. So through this effort, we were able to put together, kind of aggregate everything that we identified in the ocean economy in 10 main sectors. And the great thing of this, this exercise is that we, in the past, a lot of the ocean economy measures were based on purely on location. So if you're near the coast, or if you have any transaction in the ocean or coast areas, that will be your measure for the ocean economy. But for this exercise, we try to really incorporate as much information as possible about the activities related to the ocean. The most difficult part of this exercise was actually to understand and find a definition for the ocean economy. So just to give you an idea, things that are included in our accounting for the ocean economy are activities that take place in the marine environment, such as marine transportation, fisheries, use essential inputs from the marine environment, like, for example, seafood processing, produce goods and services mainly for the use in the marine environment, like the development of equipment, navigation equipment, for example, and that would not take place if not located in the proximity of the marine environment. But the most innovative part of this exercise is actually measuring the contribution of inland activities to the ocean economy. So the 10 sectors, we identified 10 sectors. We have over 40 industry groups on these 10 sectors. And if you look at those sectors, most of them will look to you as the traditional sectors that we have, like fisheries, energy production, but we actually included a lot of newer upcoming industries. For example, in the fisheries and bioproducts, we have the upcoming marine pharmaceutical industry. That is really one that is well in growth in the US, and it's based on a lot of research on the marine products. Research and education, we were able to account for all the investments that we are making for marine research and education from the government side, industry side, academia, labs, nonprofit. So we were able to get all this information together. Professional services, what are the professional services related to the ocean economy? We were able to account for any service that are related to the ocean economy, such as trade, financial services, environmental consulting services, also dredging and constructions in that sector were able to account for all the projects that include restoration, habitat restoration, and conservation. So most of the other ones are self-explanatory. I just want to highlight tourism and recreation. It was definitely one of the biggest sectors we had in the US marine economy. And power generation, we are including most electrical power generation, but we also have the new sustainable other forms of power generation, such as wind. And if you go to the next slide, please. And this slide is just to show you really the size of the ocean economy. For now, we are accounting for about 2% of the GDP, or the US GDP for the ocean economy. And you just can see how, I mean, it's significant, right? It's more than agriculture, more than utilities. So you can see the size of the US economy. So this is just more illustration. And so why is this information important? Why we decide to invest in this accounting exercise? So first of all, it definitely deepens our understanding of the ocean economy, and help informs the government agencies, private investors on all the issues related to policies and future investments, and also help us identify vulnerable and upcoming industries, and help focus, have more targeted investments on those industries. And in the future, so we have data for 2014 to 2018, but we expect to have more upcoming current data this year, and we'll definitely, with this information, we'll definitely be able to see the impact of COVID on the different sectors in the US economy. So this was, it has been a great exercise for us to get to know the ocean economy and really develop indicators and measures. Of course, it's not perfect, right? This type of accounting doesn't include any subsistence activity that is really, really important when you're talking about the economy of developing nations. It also doesn't include the ecosystem services, ecosystem health, but we can use this as, you know, baseline to start our measuring the economy and see the potential impacts of that. And finally, I just have a final slide. If you can go to the next one. And this is just to close. I really, really like this slide from, it's not my slide. It's from friends from the US Geological Service. And I think it's great to give us a good perspective of the information we are generating, how useful this is really for decision making. A lot of the decisions in the policy area, sometimes you know, we provide a lot of data. As an economist, we tend to get to generate data and information, but sometimes, you know, just get frustrated. Why this is not used? And I think this graph explains really how people think and what are the best ways for us to present the information we are generating. So just the pure data sometimes is not enough, right? So we generate data, but we also need to put this in context and also give the decision makers options and suggestions and alternatives. So it's not enough just to generate the data. We need to think of ways to communicate this data in a way that they can use that information.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Monica. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. I'm so sorry about that. But I think I like the perspective that you're bringing to say that when there are a lot of players involved, how do we communicate with the different people? How do we, as data generators or as scientists and innovators and people who are about hard facts and numbers, how do we communicate with people that don't actually speak that same language? And how do we package this information in ways that translates and shows them the impact of the ocean? Thank you very much for that, Monica. I'm going to move right along to Juan Emilio Sala from the CONICET. He's a CONICET researcher and coordinator of the Scientific Advisory Council of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation of the Argentine nation in relation to the Pampa Azul initiative in Argentina. Thanks, Juan. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tulil, and thanks to all the people who are listening, colleagues and all the people. And I want to say a special thanks for Joseph and his talk, his fantastic work and talk. Let me share my screen. Okay. Well, let me introduce in our Pampa Sul initiative a briefly introduction, because later in this day of sessions, Carolina Vera, the executive coordinator, will give in-depth talk about this initiative. But I want to talk about how science policy, Pampa Sul initiative is a good example of science policy interface and how it's work like a boundary organization. A very brief introduction about the initiative. The Pampa Sul initiative began to be implemented in August 2018 by an agreement between 7 ministries. In short, was science, environment, fisheries, tourism, foreign affairs, defense, and security. Its main purpose, the beginning, was to articulate the action promoted by the different areas of the state in the field of scientific research, technological development, and innovation at sea. In July 2020, this year, it was relaunched according to the guidelines of the new National Public Administration. The historical objectives were deepening the scientific knowledge as the foundation of policies for the conservation and management of natural commons in our big Patagonian and Argentinian continental shelf, promote technological innovations applicable to the sustainable use of natural commons and the development of industries linked to the sea, and also strengthening the maritime awareness of Argentinian society and support with information and scientific presence our sovereignty in our country in the Southwest Atlantic area. This is a very important objective for this theme session. But I need to talk about how to do that, how to work in a conceptual framework. And this is the main issue in this talk. The Pampa Sul initiative is an excellent example of science policy interface like IPCC or IPES on a national scale, also with regional and international scope. Pampa Sul also acting as a boundary institution or organization, and boundary institutions are organizational systems, programs, or institutional arrangements that facilitate interaction between science and technology producers and users and stabilize the science policy interface. And how we can do this in terms of methodologies, we need to embrace transdisciplinary research, and we will construct in this initiative knowledge and public policies by interviewing various scientific disciplines and other types of knowledge like traditional, local, institutional, among others. But we need to define some boundary objects. That is another tool for work in this kind of post-normal science. The boundary objects are distinguished from simple data through their use, facilitating stabilization between two social worlds, big different worlds. Climate modeling, for example, or climate policy. And some examples of boundary objects are climate scenarios, ecosystem service concept, among others. But we need to embrace, if we want to transform our way of or do the research relating to our Atlantic, from the normal program of science to post-normal science. This is a proposal by Funtowicz and Roberts, and it's both a conceptual framework and a practical approach to problematic situations that we all have in our Atlantic, where the stakes are high and the science is ascertained. The need to face the end of the Cartesian dream, as proposed by Funtowicz and Roberts. If you look in the figure, you can see Pampa Sul is like in the middle of the pure applied research to post-normal, the construction of post-normal science. We are working to go to this goal. To finish, I need to give you some reflections, and we need to really want, if we really want to intervene and positively impact on our marine and coastal socio-ecological systems, in ecosystems and in the people who make them up, we need to move toward public policy ready science. This is a new concept to say we need to create another kind of science. This is a very important kind of science, more prepared for the public policy. And to achieve this, we must abandon the normal science program that has now reached its zenith to embrace the reconceptualization of post-normal science. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Kwan, I'll be honest with you, I'm fascinated by the idea of post-normal science and including more practicality into how we approach, or the method that we use to approach the development of and solving challenges in the ocean. Thank you very much for that, Kwan. We'll catch up again in the discussion. I am going to move on to Michael B. Jones from TMA Blue Tech, also from the United States of America. Over to you, Michael B. Jones. Thank you.
Great. Good morning from San Diego, California. I am the president and founder of the largest and most active ocean technology cluster in the United States. But we're very active internationally, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Our mission statement is to promote sustainable, science-based ocean and water industries. So we bring together both ocean and water. So what is a cluster? If you're not familiar, there's a very well-established concept of a business cluster as a concentration of industries. And then you convert that into an organized cluster when you realize that has developed, and you try and bring both effective leadership and funding together. And we believe that blue tech clusters in particular are critical to promote the triple bottom line. And in our case, we have both tech service and manufacturing companies that come together. And triple helix clusters, as we call them, bringing together industry, academia, and policymakers are the triple helix. And we think they should be created region by region, country by country. And I want to do a shout out to the EU. Their European Cluster Collaboration Platform is a great organization. This is what we believe clusters do. They bring together academia, education, what we call blue STEM. Industry is the second leg of the stool. The third leg of the stool is policy. And where we all overlap, because we have different needs as stakeholders, is understanding what the problems are, economic growth, and of course, jobs. And that is very important to go forward. Clusters are important to promote a growing sustainable blue economy. Some call it a quadruple helix by throwing in the public. Some call it a quintuple helix when they put in capital and entrepreneurs. But essentially, those three big stakeholder groups are really critical if you're trying to bring together a cluster. And we think clusters are critical to create blue voices. It is very important to promote ocean research, innovation, economic development, really for that common good. Clusters collaborate in multiple ways: cluster to cluster, cluster to business, business to business, cluster to government, cluster to policymakers. They can work together across joint grants and projects. And very importantly, they can help new clusters develop. What you see here is something we helped put together called the Blue Tech Cluster Alliance, which is 10 of the leading ocean tech clusters in the world that came together to really figure out how we could collaborate, really be applied in what we do. And you can see in yellow there, knowledge-based ocean and water industries, and collaborate on research and development initiatives. So this is not supposed to be a castle with the moat and a drawbridge, but rather our goal is to help other clusters develop. We've been working in Asia and in Latin America. We're all looking out in Africa as well. Just by way of two case studies, we would not have been able to do this without the Blue Tech Cluster Alliance. So clusters get to know industry needs and can coordinate stakeholders. So we went together with two of our cluster partners, Plocan in the Canary Islands, Formoseana, which is the national Portuguese maritime cluster, And then with the AIR Center, Atlantic International Research Center, I know that Miguel Bello will be speaking tomorrow as well. But the four of us got together and said, you know, there's a real need to have places where you can show long duration and long persistence without being too far from a place that can come and pick you up if, God forbid, there is a problem. And so we are in the process of creating essentially long duration, long residence testing facilities and courses. And you can see them here. ARC is our name, Atlantic Autonomous Robotics Consortium. And our goal is to get this started with partners in Porto and Lisbon and the Azores and Madeira and the Canary Islands, and then later extend south to Cape Verde and on to Africa. We think that this is a very concrete example of something we're trying to do for the Atlantic, but for the world, frankly. Companies need this, governments need this, NGOs need this to find out what technologies are working and figure out what is the very best for their needs. And then finally, our second case study, we have worked very hard in our region. On the right-hand side, you can see a series of things that we've done, including working with our biggest school district across 105,000 students. We're infusing blue tech, but we're really particularly proud that we've helped create during COVID a blue tech ocean optimism curriculum that we hopefully will be using internationally and making that available. We call it blue tech optimism because it includes both ocean and water. And we are going to be raising funding to make sure it gets translated into other languages and again is available around the world. So with that, I just want to thank the organizers. I think the All Atlantic Ocean Research Forum is a great institution. The work that's being done to the EU, incredible work to all of you in South Africa. Congratulations on your work. Thank you for allowing me to participate.
Thank you so much, Michael B. Jones. Quite a lot of collaborative work there taking place, but I just want to highlight, for me, the deliberate action to look at your curriculum. The deliberate action to look at your curriculum and try to transform your curriculum so it speaks to the ocean is, for me, I think, remarkable and something new that we've gotten from this panel. So thank you very much for that, Michael. I'm going to move on to Deepna Kio. Deepna Kio, who is the chair of the EU Atlantic Strategy Steering Committee in Ireland. Over to you, Deepna.
Thank you. I've just lost my, just bear with me one moment. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I cannot see your presentation.
Okay, just give me one moment.
While Deepna is doing that, just to give that shout out to everybody that's watching us via YouTube and watching us via Facebook. Please remember the hashtag for the conversation is AtlanticOr. Over to you, Deepna. Thank you.
Okay, you can see my presentation?
Yes, I
Perfect.
can.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Tulil, for the introduction. As you said, my name is Deepna Kio, and having been a member of the Atlantic Strategy Committee since 2017, I have just in the last couple of weeks taken over the job of chairing the group for 2021. So let me begin by thanking Dr. Tura and the Department of Science and Innovation South Africa's team, and Jean-Eric Paquet and the European Commission's Research and Innovation Directorate team for the invitation to take part here today. I come to you from a cold and rainy Brussels. Having had the opportunity to visit South Africa in 2008, I would have loved to be there for this conference, but unfortunately, as for it all, it was not meant to be. So to the Atlantic Maritime Strategy. This is a specific sea basin strategy that was adopted in 2011 to address calls from stakeholders for a more ambitious, open, and effective cooperation in the Atlantic Ocean area. The strategy group identified challenges and opportunities faced in the Atlantic region and was accompanied by the EU's 2013 to 2020 action plan, which set out practical steps to be taken in the then 5 Atlantic member states. In 2017, this committee made up of 4 member states, that is Ireland, France, Portugal, and Spain. It also includes regional representatives and the EU Commission representatives. And we oversaw a midterm review of the action plan to assess its performance and draw lessons from its implementation to pave the way for the future. Based on the findings of the midterm review, notably the potential of the action plan to deliver even more of an impact for the coastal economy, a series of workshops revolving around themes identified as highly relevant for the Atlantic blue economy were held between September and November 2018 in the member states. As a result of this work, the revised Action Plan 2.0 was adopted just 4 months ago on the 23rd of July 2020. The plan sets out 7 goals under 4 pillars, which focus on collaborative issues that one coastal region and one single state cannot solve alone. The 4 pillars are Pillar 1, ports as gateways and hubs for the blue economy. Pillar 2, blue skills of the future and ocean literacy. Pillar 3, marine renewable energy. And Pillar 4, healthy ocean and resilient coasts. As we begin our work under this new action plan, the committee will work collaboratively with all stakeholders under all pillars to support the delivery of the goals and actions that we have set out for ourselves. The new action plan continues to recognise the vital importance of the international dimension and the fundamental role of research, development and innovation in delivering our goals. The research activities undertaken as part of the Galway and Belém statements and the Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance cut across all 4 pillars. They give this international dimension to the plan and support its implementation by improving an understanding of our understanding of the changing Atlantic Ocean and its effect on coastal communities, and by developing innovative solutions. The Atlantic Strategy Committee hosts an annual autumn conference known as the Atlantic Stakeholder Platform Conference, which took place this year just a couple of weeks ago from Bordeaux in France, as France chaired the group in 2020. At that conference, we hosted the Atlantic Project Awards, which gave recognition to projects in each of the 4 pillar areas, alongside the area of international cooperation. The winner in this area was the EU Atlas Horizon 2020 project, whose goal is to improve our understanding of complex deep sea ecosystems and their associated species, including those that are new to science. The project epitomizes international cooperation as it draws on stakeholders from 12 nation states, 12 universities, 5 SMEs, and 4 national research centres. Ireland will continue the tradition of presenting Atlantic Project Awards in 2021 and will welcome entries from any or all of the excellent and innovative projects that will be seen here at this conference over the next couple of days. In 2021, we will continue to support the ambition and vision of all our Atlantic partners. In that regard, we look forward to working collaboratively with participants past and present in the Atlantic Youth Ambassador Programme. These ambassadors provide an intrinsic link between our Atlantic regions and our international cooperation efforts, and we will seek ways to support them as they continue to drive change in our communities. I would also hope to explore and develop further linkages and synergies between the Atlantic Strategy, Mission Starfish, and to be part of this broader all-Atlantic Ocean community. The current challenges we face in terms of COVID recovery, ensuring a prosperous and sustainable future for our blue economy, and an ever-changing international landscape demand at this stage, I think that we set ourselves up for success. And I believe that working together, we can provide the solid foundation that is required for that achievement. I hope to welcome at least some of you perhaps to Ireland for the Atlantic Stakeholder Platform Conference next autumn, where a very warm welcome will await you all. For now, please feel free to get in touch if there is anything further you would like to know after the conference or during it as regards the Atlantic Strategy Committee. And thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, Divna, for that contribution. I like that incentivizing projects through awards. I mean, recognizing people through awards always gets them riled up and gets them into a space where they want to do even better research. So as I'm collecting all of the different strategies within these contributions that all of you are making. And I do want to share all of this with you because I'm trying to isolate all of the unique points from each and every presentation. And I think from that, it's then incentivizing the projects with awards. And our last panel speaker in this session is Hilka Jaula. She's the acting registrar at the University of Namibia in Namibia. Over to you, Hilka.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Yes, I will try to be brief, seeing that I'm the last, so that we get into the discussion. Yes, I titled my talk, which I will just put on the, the role of society, science, and government in unlocking ocean economy potential. While this talk might sound general, it's made in the context of Namibia, but I do hope the message cuts across for a number of the Atlantic community where the situation would come out similar to Namibia. Basically, I'm saying that we all, or at least it's a common understanding that humans drive numerous market and non-market benefits from ocean systems. And one can place this in three categories or various categories, and I'm mentioning three here: the ecosystem services, where we're talking of the provisioning, the regulatories, and cultural and biodiversity. And then we're talking of the group where science or environmental services are the ecosystem functions, your ocean integrity, the climate regulations, the carbon sink, and the hydrological cycles. Those are some of the services we get from the oceans. And then we have the social aspect of things where we get the food, fisheries, we have tourism, energy, bioprospecting, spiritual, aesthetics, bequest, and mining, transport, sport. And depending on where a person is is based and what resources they are, these lists can be expanded. So then comes the aspect of governance, which is the process of informed decision-making that enables trade-offs between competing resource users so as to balance environmental protection with beneficial use in such a way as to mitigate conflict, enhance equity, ensure sustainability, and allow accountability. So these things all need to be balanced. And it's the art of balancing that somehow becomes a challenge in ensuring that a societal aspect of the ocean sciences is achieved. So that balance, what am I referring to, is such that for the governance of governments to optimize human benefits without compromising the ocean health, there is those two groups where the environmental regulation for sustainability and ocean health comes in with research on the science and how much of science we understand. And then the other side, we will have society, of which they are the resource users, they have well-beings to maintain, and they are doing that for the current generations and the future generations. Again, the art of balancing things within these three aspects becomes the question that we as countries along the Atlantic or anywhere else is coming in. For now, we are seeing how climate change is driving the green side quite down, and how that leaves societies in the future is something that requires to be considered. And now governments are at a task to see what can be done so that there is not a toppling of one side over the other. As such, I'm now pointing out to quite a number of aspects that perhaps are worth considering from various angles. And I'm saying that for most frameworks for the ocean industries, when now society or governments are coming in to make use of the resources or make use of the Atlantic, is such that The frameworks are largely determined internationally, and local authorities need to cascade them to domesticate them and come up with their own frameworks. In a number of cases, or for societies which are still getting to develop their industries, they find themselves in a top-down approach rather than the bottom-up, whereby they have to operate within the confines of those frameworks. And at what point, I mean, how much that limits the potential, or how much their input has influenced those frameworks is a pendulum that sometimes is into how much of the other societies or coastal countries whose input has not necessarily informed such frameworks, but then they have to live within those frameworks. Those are some of the matters that becomes part of the discussion on how societies can either benefit or play their part. And then it's an aspect of science, knowledge, such that in the absence of science, policymakers may operate towards a consensus view rather than a sound understanding of the underlying science. That again is indicating that the alliance like the one we have here is allowing to bridge that gap, whereby policies are not made by merely reaching consensus, but they are taking aspects of science. And science in areas where it's lacking, it's important that efforts are coming together so that such is that gap is bridged. And then again, the third one I'm highlighting here is such that those who are ahead from where we are, and I'm again bringing Namibia as a case in study, they commence with the series of national marine policies, roadmaps, and targeted societal initiatives. And those ones included the visions for ocean economy, the guiding principles, the policy goals, set objectives, and investment in research. Again, in the aspects where it's necessary that we move forward to again get the art of balancing these three aspects for the betterment of society's intake or uptake of the Atlantic resources. It's again another area that becomes a hurdle to go through for countries or societies that are yet to benefit fully from the Atlantic and make it a sustainable resource that the coastal countries have. I am therefore concluding by saying that there is sustainable growth potential in a maritime area for the Atlantic countries, and mainly for the Southeast Atlantic countries, where things are still to develop to a level of the rest of the Atlantic countries. There is that balance that is needed, and definitely we will be able to do it, and we can make it work. And this alliance has proven that with the engagement with various stakeholders, research for those that are behind can be improved, and those that are able to assist developing countries or countries that have gaps to fill has provided potential to do such. Thank you very much. I think that's what I could contribute to the group, and I will be available for the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hilka. It's a balancing act, this thing, the government, the science, the players in the science space, and the society. And it's about finding that right balance to be able to benefit all of the different players for the benefit of the people. I understand, Hilka. We have exactly 14 minutes to engage, and I'm going to kick it off with a question to Kendra. And the question is asking, how did you engage industry and foster data sharing in the particular sector?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say we are at the early stages of the data sharing journey. We are actually right now going through a series of workshops. I think there is a large spectrum of views around open data versus competitive value of data. And so that's a bit of an ongoing conversation, but I think we very early on with our cluster, so a couple of years ago, talked to them about our data strategy and what that should look like and the importance of finding a way to share data for the success of the cluster. But I would say that there's still a lot of education to do, and that's one of the reasons we've actually just had a first workshop this week. We've got 2 more coming up the rest of this month, and a project called Vitality, which is actually focused on educating around the value of data in particular ocean sectors.
Okay, that's interesting, Kendra, because you're talking about how you're actually offering industry, in some cases, something that they don't even know they need, because you are still having to educate them about the use and the impacts of this data that you derive from the ocean. I think that's really, really awesome, and definitely worth replicating in other nations as well. Let's educate to add value to the industry so that we add value as well to the research and the people holistically. Thank you, Kendra, for that. I've got a question here that's not necessarily directed to anybody, but the question is, won't climate change endanger the blue economy? Is it not endangering the blue economy already? Any takers for this one?
May I?
Alexander, you can go ahead.
Yes, there are two aspects related to development and climate changes. We need to improve our capacity to internalize, to include the logic, the aspect of climate changes in environmental impact assessment. It's not the case yet in most countries in the world, in 2 aspects. The way climate changes will affect the enterprises, the developments, and the way the developments will contribute in a positive or negative way to the changes, to the situation. And it's really, really important, and it should be supported by science, which we are considering a very important kind of science, which is ecosystem-based approach. This is a very important aspect that needs to be incorporated as a positive side effect of the science we need to produce. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Alexander. And the next question, I think, from an educational perspective, we're going back to explaining the terminology, and the terminology here that we need explained is blue technologies. What is meant by blue technologies? If I remember correctly, Michael B. Jones was speaking about blue technologies.
We talk about both blue STEM and blue tech. So in the larger blue economy, we did a study in San Diego, and we're just getting funding to redo that study. We found 46,000 direct jobs related to the ocean, and of that, about 19,000 related to blue tech. And for us, that's 16 sectors, starting with aquaculture and biomarine and going across to weather and climate change. So it's really the technology leading edge. So we don't look, for example, at maritime recreation as part of our cluster, but the people that create the diving equipment, or the people that are driving innovation in vessels, those would be of interest to us. So again, the difference between the larger blue economy and then the more specific technology aspects of it. So our membership is really 100% focused on technology. We have a sister organization in San Diego that takes care of the broader blue economy, and so we work very closely together.
So if I understand you correctly, there's an element of the innovations and technologies that lead up to that form part of the value chain of what takes place, or what research takes place specifically in the ocean. So to the extent of looking at what technologies would be necessary, if there are sensor technologies that are necessary, who's developing those sensor technologies? So the before we get to the ocean, as it were, the technologies that would need to be incorporated from that perspective.
Let me take an example. Your last question was a great springboard. We have companies working on plastics in the ocean. You know, how do we find where they are and then get rid of them? We have companies working on combating IUU. We have companies focused on ocean noise, and they're coming up with the ways to understand ocean noise as a pollution source. And that's a relatively recent, understanding. So every vessel that moves around creates noise, but we haven't had silent vessels and inexpensive acoustic equipment that you could put out to understand how marine mammals talk to each other, absent typically big vessels. So our companies are creating technologies that allowing researchers to be more efficient in what they do. One of the first speakers talked about, the cost for them of putting a vessel out. Well, autonomous vessels and new and very affordable sensors are what tech companies are developing. Sometimes following on from the science, sometimes they're doing it in their own labs and then they bring it to academics to work on, because there's a symbiotic relationship of testing, writing about it, finding new interns. So there should be a much better match than I think traditionally there has been. So we're working on the technology edge of getting the information out into blue jobs and creating the solutions.
Wow, okay. All right. Thank you so much for that, Michael. And there's a question here about human capital development. And I think from the session, we've heard about the high school or curriculum reform element. We've heard as well about the direct or deliberate efforts to redirect people from one industry into careers of the blue, of the ocean, as it were. But I want to ask now, any takers from the floor, those all seem to be targeted towards the almost formal ways of creating, of educating people. What are some of the informal ways that we can educate society to aid them in better understanding the ocean and the benefits of it, outside of the formal structures of universities and academia and school and so on? Anybody from the floor can go for that.
So maybe just a quick comment on that. So we had actually Amazon Prime is doing an episode on Canada's Ocean Supercluster. So that will help tell the story to broader Canadian public in terms of the opportunity that exists in ocean. We also have, separate from the supercluster, but part of ocean literacy. So just raising awareness again around for broader Canadian public in terms of both the opportunity, the risks, the conversation, and making it a broader conversation than just those that have a particular interest or within the schools, which is all important, but how do we get to the broader benefits to the society as a whole?
I think there's quite a number of things you mentioned there, because then there's engaging with broadcasters and being a little bit more creative about how you're reaching your people, perhaps in more resource limited settings. You're looking at things like radio and so on, and using the internet to communicate these ideas and this knowledge to the greater population.
I think digital, sorry, just very quickly, I think digital is incredibly important in terms of being able to get the message out. So we use that, and has been quite effective in helping us tell our story.
And I see you turn on your camera, yes?
Yeah, I think also citizen science is a very, very powerful tool to do that. I think citizen science is growing all around the world, and it's a very important tool to do that.
Kwan, what is citizen science?
Well, it's the way to co-construct science with the citizens, with the people, from the field to the cabinet, all the process, implicating all the people through the process of co-construct this knowledge with the people. And this is the way to involve the people in the process and to embrace the results all around the society.
And Kwan, how are you attracting the people? How are you attracting them?
Well, I think marine science and also marine environments are quite attractive. I think it's quite enough. But the people now, it's the people, the common citizens are improving their needs to approach to science, and also this is important to fuel with social medias and internet and different approach to approach these people interested in science to do this kind of projects. For example, with marine leaders.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Kwan, for that. Very passionate. I think if we love something and we're passionate about it, we just always assume that everyone else just loves it and everyone else is going to come on board. And I think that's really awesome. It's awesome energy. And there's a question here from one of our speakers, Hilka, on how to cascade international framework to regional framework. And she believes we need input from this forum. So in other words, Hilka is asking from a regional perspective, how do we cascade the frameworks that are already existing internationally, regionally? Any takers for the migration of frameworks, as it were, from international community to the regions?
I can at least say that that's a role that clusters often play. And so we work across international lines with our various cluster partners. And it's one of the reasons that we're working right now with Taiwan, Korea, and a prefecture in Japan to create clusters. We've been working with Brazil, particularly the Brazilian Navy, who's trying to promote clusters. And with that comes education, the opportunity for citizen science. We've been in touch with people in Tunisia, in Kenya, and trying to help in South Africa as well. Whenever we or any of our cluster partners through the Blue Tech Cluster Alliance hear about a cluster that's in formation, we reach out to see if we can assist. And part of that is research, part of that is education, part of that is transmitting what we know to others. That's a core portion of what the Blue Tech Cluster Alliance was created to do.
And Michael, the emphasis there is the regions must reach out. Is that the emphasis there?
Well, the answer is yes, but of course we're trying to find them. If we read about someone, so we, for example, just put on our 12th annual Blue Tech Week, and we had 660 people from 37 countries. We reached out to over 50 clusters or clusters in formation around the world and invited them to virtually participate. We spent a whole day, every year we spent a whole day with clusters trying to let them understand what we see a cluster doing and how they can benefit from existing clusters. So the whole idea is, again, if you cut me, you would see blue and you would see clusters, because I believe that clusters are critical, region by region, country by country, to really bring together education, academia, government, and industry so that they're rowing in the same direction. And when we as a cluster that exists find a cluster or a region that wants to create a cluster, we reach out if they haven't reached out to us, but we hope they will reach out. So our goal is to help create clusters around the world. Again, I'm not just talking about TMA Blue Tech. I'm talking about my third slide, which was the Blue Tech Cluster Alliance. This is something that we talk about how we can assist.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Michael. As you're speaking about the workshops that you host, and as Kendra as well is speaking about some of the workshops that they host, I wonder if the forum itself shouldn't have some kind of a portal where all of the partners can go to and see what workshops are taking place, even within the platform or the forum itself, to enable people to gain the knowledge internally, to increase their collaborative efforts internally within the forum. I'm not sure if that's already taking place, but from the question that Hilker is asking and the different solutions that have been presented, I think that might be worthwhile.